You were the flower boy.
My introduction to Newark was really as a result of HIV/AIDS. I don't know, some people may know that I was very actively involved with the Vietnam Veterans Movement prior to getting involved with the LGBT gay movement. And at the time, I joined a group called, when I first became involved with the gay movement, I joined a group called it was Black and White Men Together. And the reason I joined the group was because I found that when I was trying to get involved in New Jersey, but I found that it was mostly white male-led, and their agenda didn't fit with the kind of issues. They had no concerns about the community. And since I was involved with the Vietnam Veterans Movement and was secretary for years to the National Association for Black Veterans, I spent a lot of time dealing with issues of racism. And the experience that I got from trying to join the groups in New Jersey was they simply was not interested in that. They were interested in gay rights as opposed to what I felt needed to be dealt with, and that was human rights. I think that's still an issue today. It's the contradiction that goes on in our community. In any case, I joined Black and White Men Together because they were working on racism, sexism, homophobia, heterosexism, and and HIV/AIDS discrimination. So that fit well with an agenda that I felt we needed to deal with. And from 1980 to when the group started to 1990, I would go to New York every Friday night. And at the time, I had just finished my 11-year relationship with Nick, and I was seeking to do other things. So for those 10 years, I went to New York almost every night, every Friday night, and we discussed these issues in CR sessions, and I got to meet people like Baird Rustin and Andrew Lloyd and even James Baldwin, both of whom spoke to our group for the first time. The first time they spoke to a gay group was because of our work and because we wrote about the issues that we were dealing with in our newsletter, and we shared it with people like them because we wanted to invite them and wanted them to know of our work. And they were our visionaries. And in fact, the group and what we were about was modeled after a bridge called My Back. And it was issues of women of color talking about their experiences. And we modeled our work around that kind of coming together. In 1990, I was called, MACT was called by Patty Pendavis, Patty LaBelle, the House of LaBelle, because people were, members of the House community, were sick and dying and not getting information about HIV/AIDS prevention. And for me, I had been involved in a study group in New York because I was part of Men of All Colors since 1982. I had been involved in a study group around issues of behavior and what was happening in order to prevent HIV/AIDS infection. And at that point, I said, it's time for me to go home. So I worked with another person, Barbara Ford, to write a grant to the state to do HIV/AIDS prevention, and we target the House community. And that's when I became introduced to the gay community in Newark. Although I lived in Newark and I had a partner, Nick, and we spent most of our time in New York. Occasionally I would go to bars, but only when friends would come. I went to Murphy's. I did go to Murphy's. I did go to the First Choice. And of course, one will never forget the Paradise Garage.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That was the place to go. That was in New York, however.
But there were lots of Newarkers there.
Yeah, and very, very much the place to be. In any case, that my work began in Newark at that point, and hopefully people will get a chance to see some of the work we did around that, because we found an actual hot, horny, healthy, wet, wild, well process that we use to help people understand about HIV. Unfortunately, we were doing this work, and because we were doing it with the houses, someone got word about what we were doing, so they decided in the Trentonian that they would castigate our work, and the state comes down, and right now, the state will not allow any grants that has anything about it in the balls, that has anything about balls in it, because they were saying that we were using funds from the state to buy stiletto heels and wigs and gowns and stuff, when in fact, we paid for the balls through the funds that we got from people who came. And I must say that the first night that we did the ball, it was February. It was snowing and a blizzard, and I said, oh child, we took a bad time to have a ball. And folks told me from the house community, don't worry, folks will show up. And honey, by the time 12 o'clock came, we had over 500 people in the house. And the balls were a hot thing for us, and I hope people get a chance to see, because, should I do a little thing about it now, Katab? Yes, I will. May 5th of 2012, we will have the Newark is Burning 2 Walking for Tens. So buy your tickets, because it's going to be hot up in Newark on Saturday, May 5th, 2012. We're going to have give you a little taste of what it was like, or what it is like to go to a ball if you've never been to one.
And before we move on to Natalie, there may be some folk who are not familiar with houses or balls. So can you say like a few words about what that is?
I guess the best description that I can make of it is not necessarily an accurate one, but it mostly reflects what people would understand. People know about fraternities and sororities, and they know what that experience is like. It's a group of like-minded people coming together for a particular cause. Well, in the house community, there are mothers and fathers from the various houses who actually are mentors and people who look out for young people, many of whom who have been what we call runaways and throwaways. And one can imagine what it's like to be in a family when you are very young, maybe even 12 or 13 years old, and because you say, I think I'm gay, your family say, you're out of here, you're no longer a part of this family. And what happens to those kinds of youth? And so the houses have been a place where a lot of these kids end up, and they end up in places where they are mentored, they are helped and assisted to go to school, to continue their schooling, to hopefully graduate. But the balls is a part of what I call the self-esteem building, because the balls allow you to be on stage, allow you to exhibit who you are in a very profound way that people enjoy and people appreciate, and it can certainly build your ego and make you feel like you belong to something bigger than you are. And that's what all of us seek. And so the houses have been a place for youth. And I guess, as I said, the best way to describe it is it's not necessarily physically a house, although the houses have helped people stay in homes and have helped put food on the table for those who need it.
Thank you. Natalie.
I think that Newark is a wonderful playground. And it has been a wonderful playground for me because I am quite different, and we have a diversity of people in Newark. In Puerto Rican neighborhoods, everybody is about 4'9", 5'2". But in Newark, you can 5'1", and 5'2" women. So I flow very nicely. So between going to Lancers and Fernandez and all these other clubs, including Murphy's, I flow like everybody else. So I think the whole city of Newark is a wonderful place to be.
Thanks. And I just have one more question for us as we sort of end. And one, in reflecting on sort of your own life journeys, where you are today, what words would you leave, what words of wisdom do you have for generations to follow? And you can sort of speak whenever you feel moved to do so.
Well, I guess I'd say to young people to stand on the backs of people who came before you. I'm very clear that I stand on the back of Alton, of my cousin John, of my partner Idell. They gave me the courage to identify who I was and to be who I am. And at 64, and as I look back on my journey, I realized I had several coming outs. I came out when I first started dating Idell and admitted that I liked women. I came out, my parents died when I was 24 and 25. So I never came out to them, but I came out to my two brothers, who are 8 and 9 years older than I am, once I had been with Idell for a few years. And their response to me was, "What took you so long?" And of course, my response was, "Well, damn, I was worried about this," and they just said, "Hey." I realized that I was embraced by my family and supported. They never named the relationship between Idell and I, but they called her their niece and their sister. And so I'd say to young folk, it's not an issue of it gets better. It's an issue of it's okay. And embrace who you are and be who you are. And if you do that, then you'll figure your way through this journey, because life really is a journey with lots of ups and downs, but you find family. And it's either your biological family or it's the family you make. And I've had a combination of both. And then lastly, because of my journey, I've realized that I'll apologize to nobody for who I am. And people will either accept me for who I am or they won't. And that's okay, because it's their right to do that, but it's my right to be who I am. And as an elder, I guess, I say to the generations that came after me, mentor young folk. Give them a touchstone. Give them a model that says you can be who you are and it's okay to be queer, whatever that means for every individual.
Thank you.
Well, you said a lot, and it's hard to add to that. A couple of things I would add. One is that I view coming out as a lifelong experience, in the sense that you're always going to meet someone new, you're always going to encounter something different that don't know you, and you have to express that to whoever or whatever that might be. So in effect, you have to come out again and again and again. The second thing is something that I mentioned before, and I think is crucial for us as a community, and that is we really need to build, to envision, to build, to create, and then support our own institutions. If we do not have those institutions, then we will have nothing that we can leave to our youth, to our family, to our friends, to those who come after us, that says who we are, what we did, and how it may impact you in deciding what you want to do with your life and how you want to go forward, and what the challenges are that you are meeting. In other words, you have a history, and if you have that history, you can add to it and change things and make new, as opposed to always repeating what may not have worked. And it's important that we always constantly move forward and seek to do new work. There's a lot of old work out there, but unless we understand that old work, then the new work is going to be more challenging than it needs to be. And finally, if there is something very complicated remember that complicated things always can be reduced to simple things, step by step by step. And patience is important, because as you go through things step by step by step, you get to the complicated part, because you have taken apart the things that are small and doable and that you felt you could handle.
I believe that the most important thing that I can pass to others is you have to be honest to yourself. You must know who you are before you move on into anything you do. And don't take no shortcuts, because shortcuts does not exist. Don't believe that having a vagina or the nice of good boobs is going to make you the person that you are, because that while they may look good, that's not who you are. So therefore, you have to be able to build yourself with responsibility and with rights, because that is what you're going to take upon as you go on in life. And it's never going to end. To today, for me, being in here today, it has been a step forward in my life, and I appreciate everybody for inviting me, because for the many of you who knows me for many years, probably you never, ever thought that Nataly would be sitting where she is today. And so I appreciate the fact that I have come to the institution. And I have never been far away from it, but I have always been scared of it because the person who Nataly is. But to end my piece, be good to yourself, be responsible. I make sure that you exercise your rights all the time. Because if you don't, somebody will eat you out, and you are too precious to let somebody else to eat you out.
I guess I would say, given where I come from, the kinds of odds that I faced, to get from there to where I am at now is nothing short of a miracle. So miracles are possible. I know that at some point in my life I had to make a decision, and that decision was that there was a truth that lived inside of me about myself that no opposition could deny, no opposition could smother or destroy, and I was going to live out that truth, even though I didn't always understand fully and completely what it was, and I think that it continues to reveal itself to me in ways that I never anticipated. When I think that I come from incredible poverty, incredible violence, abuse, and neglect, and that I am the only person in my entire family to have a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, a PhD. How that happened, I do not know, except that this force that I describe as a spiritual force inside of me propelled me and compelled me to do that. That's the first. The second is, I do not believe that any of those things would have happened in the way that they did if I had not lived all of my life in this city. I encountered people, I encountered circumstances, I encountered knowledge, love, compassion, support, in a place that in retrospect seems incredibly small to me now, as opposed to I remember as a little kid walking around this city and thinking it was the biggest city in the world. And when I wander around it now, I see it's really a very small place in many ways, geographically speaking. It has none of the magnitude, at least geographically, that I thought it did then. but it has as much magnitude, it has as much sophistication as New York City, as San Francisco, as Los Angeles, as all these different places that I used to fantasize about as a young man that I wanted to be as opposed to where I was. When I look out and see the faces in this room of people that I have grown up with, people that I have collaborated with on many social change issues, not only the sexuality issue, the race issue. It's just an incredible, incredible, wonderful, wonderful gift. And I think if nothing else, we should all remember, I would say that wherever you are is the best opportunity you can have to become who you really are or who you want to be, or to discover the mystery of what that is.
Thank you. I see why all of those forces were trying to keep me from this panel and from being here. My heart's touched, and I'm certain that everyone in the audience is. Can we please give them a round of applause?